You're on.
Okay,
Thanks for
so we're back in business, okay.
Wait, let's see how much it's better versus the lights on or off.
Oh, yeah, it might be a little, yeah. That's what we
Can you
got.
still see, or is that?
I
right
can
now?
see fine.
He's got a computer.
Yeah, but do you have to read anything off your notes or anything, or?
What note? Damn, I forgot notes. So anyway, so as I mentioned, this is basically a draft presentation regarding the capital plan that we've been working on here the last many months. And again, I'm very interested in any feedback from the board, Jim, Pat, of course. So, where are we going here next? So, what is capital plan? So, obviously this slide is just to, present that to the public, identify priority projects, how are they going to be financed or funded, and what are the effects on the ratepayer. In this case, it's gonna be based on the property tax rate, the ad valorem rates in the various districts. Why water and wastewater? Well, it's over 50% of the town's budget. It's a big part of the town's budget. And water and wastewater are vital to the growth and stability of the town. I mean, it's driven this town for many years, when they started with on Route 3 and the commercial districts, and built it over the years through different programs. So the discussion is going to be broken down into two parts: water capital plan, sewer capital plan. We'll kind of tie it all together at the end. So this is the water capital plan, and there's two districts in the town for water. There's the Consolidated Water District, which is the largest water district in the town, and then the base water district, which is, of course, the former Air Force Base. This is just a list of projects that are included as priority projects, and some of these have been discussed for many years. The existing water storage facilities, there's 9 tanks in the town. They're all in need of work. The town did have an evaluation done, I want to say it was that last year, Scott, or 2 years ago?
2 years ago now.
2 years ago. They need anything from painting, some structural repairs, not significant structural repairs, but, fixing ladders and vents and those types of things. USG was a company that put together this budget of $7 million. This is by far the largest chunk of the capital plan in terms of the water, Consolidated Water District. Salmon River Road is an extension of a water main from, I think it's from Archie Bordell. It is from Archie Bordell, down to Salmon River Road. That's the little area that's got 13 houses served on a well. They're not connected to the water supply. They don't have fire protection. They are in the Consolidated District, however. So this would actually connect them to the district, give them basically everything everybody else in the district has in terms of quality water, fire protection. It also eliminates a major headache on the part of the water department having to maintain that little well. And the health department has been pushing to get these folks on the Consolidated Water District supply. Quarry Road Water, that's a project that is a redundancy project. Right now, all water in the north side of town is fed from a 12-inch water line that goes up Melody Lane, under 374, up into Wallace Hill, and Trade Road, Cumberland Head, and everything else is all fed from there. So it's a major chunk of the town that only has a single connection. This would be a redundant connection to bring water to the other side of 374. So if anything, so if Melody Lane has to be shut down for any reason, a water main break, whatever, you have backup there. Is there anything else you want on that one? Yeah, I also think they'll have water quality a little bit, because you've got, you have water being able to move around a little bit better. And then in the base water district, one thing they really don't have down there is water storage. There's the one tank at Bluff Point by the college. That services the entire area. That's a 800,000 gallon tank. that tank doesn't have the ability to be taken down very easily because the college needs it for fire protection. This tank would be on Pleasant Ridge Road, up by the intersection of Carbide Road, by the sanitation, Northern Sanitation, I believe is what it is. And it's about the same size tanks, 750,000 gallon tank. That will provide much needed fire flow to the base, and also actually the nearby Schluter Corporation, that ever expanding. And this is by far the biggest project that the Base Water District faces, basically replacement of the water mains. On the county airport facility is, I think everybody's aware, all of the water mains have been replaced by the county. All the transite lines are gone, all new ductile, they're all ductile now, right? The water mains they replaced are the same water mains well, similar to the ones we have in the Base Water District. They've reached the end of their useful life. Their transite lines, those are usually 50 to 60 years. We're beyond that.
They did most of what they did with grant money?
FAA funds.
Yes, they got money from the airport, or the FAA, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I wish we could. But, there's constant breaks and repairs going on down there. And some of it, I don't even know if we need to replace. So, right. And then we have what are non-specific, non-district specific improvements. I know they kind of apply to everybody somewhat equally. One is a new source of supply, or additional source of supply. I think you're aware where the town's kind of bumping their head on the capacity of the existing water supply. We're undergoing a new, searching for new well water supply. We have a potential site there in May Courier Park. The town presently has out to bid testing of that well, which I think that's up in a couple of weeks right now. So, depending, we don't really know if that location's gonna be it, but any new source, putting in a new well, new treatment, connection to the system, and we just estimated that's gonna be about $2 million, so by the time you're all done. Figuring multiple wells, different things, so. The Bullis Road Pump Station, that's the project that's actually been on the books for years, it's designed. That is the replacement of basically the existing booster pumps down in that station with new, modern, larger VFD-driven pumps. Electrical savings, higher capacity, I think allow you to take better advantage of what you can produce at that well site.
Plus another big piece of that is the kind of integration between all of them, because right now we kind of manually run off of well one. This would allow booster pumps, wells, and towers to all talk with really a computerized SCADA system, which would be part of the project.
Right. In fact, we'll
It's
touch
kinda
this
built
base
into
on
that.
that in a second, right? Well 2 testing, it's a small project. Well 2 is down at the Bullis Road site. It's inactive at this point. There's always been a concern that it somehow would affect well 6, which is the workhorse supply well in town.
Plus it's because the plumbing's tied in.
And the plumbing's tied together, so
Would start up.
this would just basically allow the town to separate the plumbing and do some testing on well 2 to see if we can get any additional source water there. Metering, the town's been replacing water meters throughout the town. We figured that another 6 years would be needed to replace them at roughly $200,000 a year. And the reason to do it in pieces is so all the meters don't need to be replaced again at the same time in the future. You have your lifespan of 15, what if we now, about 15 years. So it would be like, just a rolling repair at that point rather than oh my God, we gotta do all these at once. It should also, metering will also capture lost, I think, revenue. Because as meters get older, they actually turn slower
Slow down, yeah.
and under-record. So, the new meters would take care of that. They'd also allow the town to read the meters extremely quickly. They'd all be radio read meters. Basically, they drive by in the truck and it gets the meters read. It also can identify leaks in houses, if somebody seems to be having a leak. There's a history in the meters, they can go back and look to see what might be going on.
Scott, has that metering been done at like a priority status, or?
Yeah, we've started with, kind of when I got here, none of the meters have been touched in quite a while, so we kind of started with really the very old meters that were 4-digit. There was also meters that our new software wouldn't even read because of their age, so we had to replace those. And then we kind of went with the highest consumptions areas, and then now we're trying to do it, we're to the point where we've kind of worked through all those priorities, and now we're doing to try to convert entire neighborhoods over at one time, so when we take advantage of that radio read activity, so we don't have a mix of going up and touching the side of the house and, you know, picking it up roadside, that we want to convert whole areas so we can do just drive-bys through those areas and gain that efficiency as soon as possible, and then convert the other areas of the town over systematically.
Another large expense is additional water storage. Town does need additional storage. It's similar to the capacity issue. You know, we're struggling to keep the tanks full, the additional storage capacity. This is a 2 million gallon storage tank. Will help alleviate some of those stress periods. And SCADA is what, I put 0 there because it's kind of involved with all the other projects. But SCADA, Facility Communications, that allows the town to basically monitor and in some cases operate facilities, you know, right from here. So it's a very good tool to keep track of what's going on, to decide if somebody needs to go out in the field or not, you know, middle of the night type of stuff. You know, I think right now your folks can take the computer home or have it home and can actually, you know, instead of going out into the field at 2 in the morning, look at it, see what's going on and decide, okay, now I'll just switch it over to this pump 2, say, and we can do it in the morning. So it saves a lot on expense in terms of overtime, those types of things. It's also good data collector in terms of, you know, what's been going on and historically in these things. And by the way, this SCADA equipment's been incorporated into any newer projects that have been done. You know, like for instance, we just finished the Route 3 and the Sorrel Avenue pump stations. They are SCADA capable. And then asset management, and actually this is something Scott really wanted to make sure you put in here, that you have a huge investment in this water system, an asset management system to keep track of that, helps with identifying routine maintenance and what needs to be done. For instance, you know, what pumps need to be looked at when, and all those things. Not to mention just knowing how much of everything you have all in one place. And basically, that's the type of system that, you know, we figured you would purchase and either hire an intern or somebody to put in the base data, and then go from there. So all that adds up to a little over $18 million in improvements. Big chunk of change. So the town also has, we also have $18 million over here we have to pay for somehow. We also have existing indebtedness in the terms of bond anticipation notes and bonds. This is just a list of what that indebtedness is now. It totals a little over $3.7 million, 1.3 million in bands, and roughly 2.5 in bonds. And you'll notice, except for the Cumberland Head Water, all the bonds are pretty small at this point. They've been around a long time, and many of them are nearing their term of the loans. This graph just represents your annual payments on your existing indebtedness. As you can see, in 2016, we're paying a little over $700,000 a year. That's going to drop by about $100,000 next year, and stay steady for the next 3 years. And take another significant drop in the year 2020. That's important because, you know, as we're looking at taking on new indebtedness, you know, we're going to be seeing other indebtedness drop off the books. So you kind of have this little balancing act of trying to keep the tax rate down versus, you know, use this to our advantage to do that.
Can you help me, how much do we spend typically per year on capital improvements in the water district?
Not much.
I guess in terms of true capital, funds that are set aside for corrupt plans, we haven't done any,
No, but I mean, what's our investment in the capital structure, the infrastructure on a yearly basis?
Well, I guess, that's, do you mean in what it costs to maintain, or just simply, we
Yeah,
spend? we
well,
spend
maintenance and new investment together.
Oh, what's your total budget,
it's 6 million for the operating budget,
water and sewer combined?
yeah.
So how much would that be per year that we're putting in?
Yes, I'm not-
6 billion in
Well,
terms of.
most times they come to have a
That's the capital.
Capital budget.
Improvements, that's
Yeah.
operations and maintenance.
Right, that's right, so in your budget, you've been spending now in base water, about
200,000.
250,000 in the sewer lining, for the last few years.
Yeah,
You just did
we did the 2 lift stations.
the 2 lift stations,
At 200.
and that's about it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you haven't carried any of
Would
those.
we be better off?
Well, that's
like-
part of why we're here, is that there has been no capital spending historically over the last several years.
But, but I guess the question I've had, we're talking about a lump of maybe 18 million. Would we have been better off spending maybe $1 million a year? Or 2 million a year, or 3, whatever?
Are you talking about years ago, Jeff?
I'm just talking about, I'm talking about what we're talking about.
I don't see how you could do it out of your budget. You'd have to increase your operating budget,
Plus, we can't take advantage of some of the, ratepayers also.
Right, if we, that raises a good point, we should probably get on here. Well, you know what, I'd like to come back to that point.
Okay.
If that's okay, because when we get into how this thing gets taxed and things, and then we'll come
Okay,
back to
sure.
that, I think. So anyway, basically, you have a declining payments on our existing debt. And by year 2023, it's almost nothing, I think that's $15,000 a year down there. The town also has reserve funds that have been building over the years. And broken down by district, the Consolidated Water District currently has a little over $3 million. The Base Water District has about, $860,000. We look at those funds as available for use, with the exception that, at least in the plan as written thus far, we would hold back $500,000 in each of those districts as a capital reserve, I shouldn't say capital reserve, but a reserve fund, should we need it for something. And the rest would be available to use in this capital plan. So we have roughly almost $3 million of funds available that exist right now in the town's bank accounts somewhere, Pat knows. So then we get into tax rate analyses, and we get into what we call cost sharing or no cost sharing. Cost sharing concept is that everything the town of Plattsburgh spends on its water system benefits everybody that's connected to the water system. That includes the town of Scholar Falls and the town of Beekmantown at this point, and any other future user. So, I don't really detail this here in the presentation, it's in the document. There's a couple ways you can do cost sharing. Right now, the town has this antiquated system of points that have been used since Ed Matkowski came up with that system way back when. It was great at the time because the town had all these little districts and it was all an internal accounting process. That's not true anymore. You have basically 2 larger districts and the point system is very complex and difficult to manage. So we recommend either going on a consumption basis type system to share cost or the number of customers. And simply put, it's everybody has a percentage of the pie at that point. So if, let's just say the total budget's $1 million and Beekmantown uses 5% of the water, they pay 5% of the $1 million. That's the concept of cost sharing. These are decisions the town board has to look at, as we go forward. And we just look at it both ways, just to give you an idea of what difference it makes. So, in the cost sharing analysis, the assumptions, obviously, there's no sharing of the costs. This is a 3-year implementation strategy for these projects. The borrowing's 20 years at 4%, which is probably fairly conservative to do right now. And just the point on borrowing is obviously whomever the town uses to do that, you know, might make sense to use a longer term, you know, or a shorter term, depending on the interest rates. But the financial manager would have to work through that. And I'm also assuming, and this is to be conservative, that there's no financial assistance through grants or low-interest loans. I mean, there are those things out there, as we know, through EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation. From time to time, you know, some grant programs pop up that might make sense to apply for. Those are things we just have to keep an eye to in the future. This is the tax rate, so this does not incorporate operational increases. So, you know, as time goes on, salaries in the department go up, or new equipment's needed for some reason. It doesn't include any of those increases. This is simply the tax rate for debt service. And the last assumption is that the reserves are applied here, that the money that's available, the town has right now, is incorporated into this. So, with no cost sharing, this graph here just gives you an idea of what happens to your tax rate. This is not the use rate, this is the tax rate that will be applied to your January tax bill for your special district taxes. Right now, it's just a touch under $1, it's 9.970, I believe. And in 3 years, 2019, it goes to about $1.62, roughly. What that means to the cost of the average cost of the homeowner, it's actually the cost of the average homeowner assessment, which is $150,000 a year. And what, you know, right now, that house pays $146. The highest year of this plan is in 2019, you'd be paying $223. And then, as you can see, it slowly starts to drop off over the years. And again, that's because our debt service from our existing debt is slowly dropping off. So by the time you get out to 2026, you're almost at the same price point. I know that's 10 years down the road, but I think that's pretty good. The base water district, without cost sharing, of course, the point here is the base water district doesn't share with anybody anyway. There's no connections to any other water districts outside the town. They are connected to the city as an emergency backup, but there's no water going anywhere else. So they go from $7 and say roughly, what's that, $7.30 to $9.20 roughly for their tax rate. So with cost sharing, it's basically all the same assumptions, but now we're going to spread out the cost to a couple other districts. You have the Woods Mills and Schuyler Falls, Morrisonville and Schuyler Falls, Macy Lane and Schuyler Falls, and the Spellman Road and Route 9 districts in Beekmantown. So here's what happens when you start to have, you know, spread that cost out. Again, we're starting at 97 cents per thousand in 2016, and it goes up to $1.56 instead of $1.62, if you remember that. So it does reduce the cost. Again, we started at $146 in 2016, and in the highest year of the plan, 2019, it goes up to $220, then back down to $150. And the base water district, again, it's the same. There's no cost sharing, so that's basically unaffected. That'll go up to you know, roughly the $9.50 or whatever it was. So then we get to the sewer district, the wastewater side of things. We have the consolidated sewer district and the base sewer districts. Again, just 2 districts. And the improvements needed. The town has a lot of lift stations in need of upgrade, repair, replacement. You know, most of these are all in the 70s. We took care of a few of them just recently with the Route 3 and the Sorrel Avenue projects. But there's a lot more to be done, and those are estimated about $3.4 million to do that. The Katyville wastewater treatment plant, that was a plant that was installed, I think it was '96. It was a plant that was originally owned and operated through Wyeth Air. They were updating their facilities, they had these extra units. The town said, we'll take them, and they were modified to work for Katyville. They're operationally difficult. There's much easier ways to handle that small amount of flow, basically what's called a recirculating sand filter. It's very simple to operate, and basically it's just a pump, and depending on what you gotta do for chlor, dechlor, or disinfection of the outfall. And Cliff Haven sewer lining. Those again are old sewers, transite pipes, the town's always down there fixing them. Makes sense to line those sewers similar to what we've done on the base over the last 4 years. It's a relatively inexpensive fix to a significant problem. Eliminates a lot of inflow and infiltration, which of course leads to higher sewer treatment costs. In the base sewer district, we have to repair manholes. And again, this is part of the ongoing sewer lining project that's going on down there. Right now is the last phase of lining that the town just started with Skinnex. But what has not been done are the manholes. And this is about, it costs about $4,000 to line a manhole. You're not gonna replace these. These are deep brick manholes, and to replace them all would be probably times 5, right, at least, you know. And then the Connecticut Avenue pump station, the Bluff Point pump station. Those are 2 pump stations that were about 300 feet apart. Obviously, at the time the Bluff Point station was built, the base was in operation, and the Connecticut Avenue station was for the base, and they certainly weren't going to share that. It's an old station, Connecticut. Well, they're both old, but Connecticut's pretty old. And the concept here is to eliminate the Connecticut Avenue pump station and rehab the Bluff Point station to accept flows from both areas and have a single pump station. Obviously gets rid of a lot of, again, that Connecticut station's very old. You know, it's a lot of work down there, so that'll basically eliminate the need for that. And then again, we have non-specific improvements. Here again, it's the SCADA concept. All these pump stations can be fitted with the SCADA communications equipment to track and monitor and operate, and asset management again on the sewer side. That's about a little over $6 million. Again, here's the indebtedness for the sewer district. Sewer district's full and bonds, about $2.4 million. For some reason, I'm missing a number here, though. The biggest one of those is the Champlain Park sewer, wastewater treatment plant replacement. Here's the annual wastewater debt service payments. As you can see, they're much different than the water side, where the water was declining. You know, this kind of has a nice little roller coaster look to it a little bit. So you don't have a whole lot of benefit from reduced debt service payments. There's some, but again, it fluctuates depending on how the bonds were written at the time. The base sewer district has no indebtedness. Again, capital reserves is about $3.4 million altogether, and for the sewer, same concept, keep $500,000 in those accounts. Leaves about $2.4 million available for improvements. So on the tax rate side, there is no cost sharing in the sewer districts. We don't provide sewer service to anybody else outside the town, so we don't need to worry about that. Again, this is a 3-year implementation, same long terms, 20 years, 4%, ignoring any grants or financial assistance, no operational increases, and all the reserve monies are applied. I shouldn't say all the reserve monies are applied, a portion of the reserve monies are applied. So on the consolidated sewer district, the tax rate jumps from about 0.3, I think it's 36 cents right now, up to just under 70 cents. And it'll stay steady, pretty much, similar to the existing debt curve we saw before. Drops a little bit in 10 years. And this just gives you an idea of what that means. The average homeowner, again, $150,000 assessment, pays $57 in taxes. Then it would go up to $101 in the highest year, which again is 2019. Have to check that. And in 2026, down to about $78. On the base side, they go from a little over $5 to a little under $6 per year. And we don't provide any, by the way, I should have mentioned it earlier, we don't provide an average for the base water sewer district because there are no residents in those districts. And just, so there's really nothing to provide an average for because they're just wildly different assessments based on the businesses that are there. So it wouldn't really mean anything. So this is just a summary of ad valorem rates in each of the district. Just using the consolidated water district there, the top line, the current rate is 97 cents, shown on the charts. The highest rate in this plan that will be seen is $1.48 per thousand. That occurs in the year 2019. That's an increase of a little over 50 cents a thousand for an additional cost to the average homeowner of $78 a year. The base, again, there's no average issue there, but they go up by about $2 a thousand. Consolidated sewer goes up about 30 cents a thousand for an average increase of $44 to the average homeowner. And the base sewer goes up by about 46 cents a thousand from their current rate. And again, these are all based on assessed valuations. It's important, and Jim comes back to your question a little bit in terms of, can we do this within our operating budget? Can we do this? Should we do this with debt? If we do it within our operating budget, we will not be able to tax certain tax exempt properties, particularly so the county, we could not, they don't pay on anything except the use rate and the debt service. So this, puts them into the mix along with everybody else.
And they're a big part of the base constituents.
Very rebuild, yeah. And this is just a summary of basically the program and where the money comes from. So we're looking at, almost $24 million in improvements. We have 4 in reserves. Some of the money does come from operating, and that was gonna be the meters, because that's like a $200,000 per year type thing for 6 years. And I think, and we're just gonna, the asset management program, so that come out of that. Which means you have to go out and borrow, or otherwise blind, $18.6 million. So that's the additional funds that will be required for this plan. And I think that was, I go back to that. And then really that was it. I'm just going back though, because I think that this chart really is significant when you're looking at this program in terms of the impact to the ratepayer. It's a lot of money, understood, but the impact to the ratepayer is not tremendous. And again, that's taking advantage of the declining debt you have now and the ability to use some of those reserve funds. So I'd be interested in questions, comments?
I guess just going back to the one I had originally,
Yep.
would we be better off just putting money in, or like, say like maybe we haven't, say you see a tank, we haven't done anything on it in 10 years, another tank, we better say, well, let's do 1 tank a year, some type of rotation as opposed to doing everything at once?
Well, you could. I'm not sure what the the dollar factors there. The other thing is, and I really should have mentioned this again too, is we're kind of in a unique position right now. Interest rates are extremely low. So money's relatively cheap. You know, so if you do it in your operating budget I guess, you're not really talking about doing your operating budget. Are you saying, let's go out and borrow $1 million and do a tank?
Well, I'm just
Or would you
thinking,
say, let's
is it,
collect $1 million and do a tank?
it would seem like, say, in the highway department, the trucks and any business, you try and you bring in one truck when one is going out and phasing in, as opposed to saying, this year we're gonna replace 18 trucks.
It's kind of like the meters.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is these tanks need, they can't wait, we can't wait 9 years to get to the last tank.
No, no,
or
I'm
5
just
years.
saying-
I understand, I mean, but these are sort of immediate needs. I think it's a more expensive way to do it, because then you're fighting not only potential higher rates, obviously you're gonna have cost increases, just like inflationary costs. Right now, it's not too bad, you know, but you have those expenses.
But in the future, do you think we should have a plan where we maintain things?
Oh,
I'll answer that, yes.
yeah, no,
Definitely.
that's, I guess that's understood in all this, right? I mean, it's, unfortunately, you know, we'll just talk about things. I mean, and by the way, you can only maintain things for so long before they just need to.
Why not,
be
I'm just,
Well, I'm just saying this because I think it's a good general comment, Jim, on that, that things like a water storage tank, okay, you know you're gonna have that repeated maintenance.
Yeah.
But at some point, for instance, some of those pump stations just, you know, they're just old, you know?
or replace mine, not necessarily.
Yeah, no, I understood, yeah.
Just
yeah,
say,
but, yeah, I mean,
say
I
if
think
there's, if there's 10, like I said, maybe use the example of the highway department, if you have 10 trucks and there's the oldest truck, maybe you get rid of that one, you put a new one in. I mean, just kind of a
Right.
logical
you
plan.
could stretch this out, you could do that. I think you lose the benefit of,
I'm not saying stretch it out necessarily this
I
way.
mean, I think this one, we gotta, I mean, the plan that I'm kinda trying to attack is that really we need to bring everything up to speed so that it meets current standards, and that then to go into preventive maintenance mode and maintain these
but,
as we move forward.
Okay, well, I guess that would, so
So-
we're not gonna do what we've been doing the last 10 years.
Well, and Jim, another thing that,
no,
for the tanks, there's a maintenance program built in
no,
with the tank, there's not.
no.
Well, the cost isn't in this
Cost isn't.
number,
This assumes.
but we would incorporate that into our operating budget to maintain these tanks at where they are, and so they are kept.
But that hasn't been the case in the past.
What you're asking, Jim, did happen with, for example, the highway department. And it's very much been the way the highway department has functioned. There was, you know, there
It's
were
for the
numbers of
trucks.
years where, yeah, the trucks were purchased on a regular basis and
250,000
rotated
for a
in,
truck.
Exactly,
rotated
yeah.
out.
Yeah, right,
Okay, there was money that would, indebtedness would be taken on if necessary to do the kind of paving that had to be done so that the roads were
Of
kept
course,
up.
you have a
et cetera.
plan.
That was done, okay? We went through a situation, we had a 10-year period where we had an administration that literally cut the cost of water in our town. That was part of how they maintained, you know, a lowering of tax rate. They cut the cost of water, when in reality, they should have been increasing the cost of water.
I just, I think from my advantage point, I think it needs to be shared. There are a lot of people to blame to where we were today.
Yep.
And, we need to, for the responsible, you know, to be responsible moving this forward, from a health, safety, economic, you know, there's a whole bunch of reasons that we need to do this. So I appreciate the time and energy that you've put in this. I mean, we are obviously not making decisions tonight by itself. This is one of many conversations to occur. You know, Scott and I have gone out a number of times. It was one of my top priorities to connect with him and others about the infrastructure on the town, because when you drive by and get off at, you know, 87, you can see one of the towers and people go, ooh, you know, that doesn't look great. Well, that's only one tower, and a lot of our infrastructure you can't see by just driving by it. you're not crawling in the holes and seeing the conditions that our team members are in. You know, working with the Department of Health, working with, you know, other agencies, making sure that we're having good, clean, water for our community.
Can I just ask a question back here, are we allowed?
It's your call.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get off track. Yeah.
No, I was just going back to what Jim was saying, it just seems odd, and this runs into even school districts and everything, that if you end up with a whole bunch of teachers that came in the '70s, they all exited at around the same time, and you have this huge turnover, and I'd have to agree with Jim that in this situation, you're gonna sink $25 million into the infrastructure, it's all gonna be brought up to par, it's all gonna fall apart at the same time again, so you'd never be in this,
Well,
you'll
that's-
never be in a rhythm where you're going to keep up the maintenance if you haven't done it by now,
Yeah,
and you got 4 million.
but that's not really an accurate statement. It's not all gonna fall apart again at the same time. You know, we're talking about different types of things, number one, right, between water and sewer, you know, pump stations. I mean, when you look at some of the pump stations these guys are working in, are freaking way up block pump stations, and, you know, the station for this itself, I mean, today you can put a new station in the ground, you know, nice cast concrete, it's gonna stay there, you got 60 years for the station, then it's just pump maintenance. So yeah, some things will go and have to be swapped out, but that's always true. You're always, you know, a pump's gonna get shot, you know, you'll have a lightning strike someplace, hit something. So it's not so much of getting to the end of the useful life of then all at once and having to, you know, replace
Isn't that what
it.
we're talking about with the water towers?
Well, the
and
water
so forth?
towers, that's a deteriorating situation, whereas if we don't do it, we will be spending
More money.
twice as much money.
Does
to
this
take care of
include
that.
the blue water tower as well?
Yeah,
And
all the water
All the water towers.
All the water towers, any
Oh,
tower
one
you
on
see,
Cumberland Head too? I
Yeah,
haven't
every
looked at
water
that.
tower needs work,
Yeah.
every tower needs to be touched.
Okay.
everyone, all 9.
Go after the most attractive contract you can go after, because you're gonna put out, you know, a volume of work that'll get
Right.
you the best price.
Right, but back to the gentleman's point and Jim's point, right, once those tanks are done, you know, they're up to par, yeah, then the responsibility falls over to the gentleman on my left here to make sure that, you know, get them on a maintenance program, usually 2 or 3 years, you're in those tanks, 2 or 3 years, looking at them and say, okay, you know.
So why hasn't that been done, I guess?
Why-
With
why-
$4
well-
million in reserves, we haven't been doing it for
Well,
how many
that's-
years?
that's-
So
this
we're
is-
gonna be 10 years down the road when this bond is supposedly paid off, everything's gonna be that 10 years older, or we're gonna be looking back at another $30 to $35 million infrastructure upgrade, because then they're gonna be 10 years older if you don't have a plan, I guess, to replace a water tower or whatever you need to do that.
Right, well, what I was about to say was that if you go into these tanks every 2 or 3 years, you do, you know, you can
Identify.
identify the problems and the smaller problems and take care of them then, your costs are so much less than having to, you know, go back, drain a tank, clean the whole inside, you know, I mean, it's
Plus-
quite the operation that.
And one of the
that
things
goes.
with the towers is that they've kind of been let to a point where they, typically if they would've been caught early, you could do a power wash type of thing to clean it and put a seal coat over it, you got good adhesion steel. Still, the tanks have failed to the point where we're down to bare steel. So we gotta prep them all the way to steel, work them back up, and then maintain them at that level moving forward. And it's much more doable to get them back up to where they need to be to maintain them at that point than to do, right now, we're just throwing spots on, you know, really, you know,
Patches.
patch repairs that aren't gonna really achieve us anything.
Right.
You
On
had
any
mentioned
one
there's
bike.
gonna be a 3-year implementation of the program, but why are the expenses and the debts jumping all in the first year and maintaining a rate of, a sewer rate and a water rate immediately?
Because those, I'm assuming that when you start the project, you're taking your borrowing. Like, so in the base water district, and sewer base sewer district, for sure, you know, you got 2 projects there, and they're both gonna go right away, so it just jumps up and stays flat. Let me just see, when I go back here.
Wouldn't we be paying for a couple of years worth of lending that we wouldn't actually be expending the money that's gonna take 3 years to get?
No, it doesn't take 3 years to finish all the projects. What I'm saying is that, you know, you can finish a project within a year or 2, it depends on what year you start the project in. So you might not start the project until, say, 2018, and go out and borrow your money in 2018, or get it set anyway. And that's where I think the town, behoove the town to get a good financial person on that to figure, okay, what makes the most sense, in terms of that borrowing. I mean, again,
And I think it's critical to know that not all the answers are in this very moment. I mean, we're
Oh, I
thinking,
thought it was for public.
well, this is, but it's
Just
draft.
It's
Very
draft,
first draft.
that's really draft
Right.
report.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
I mean,
first
we're
draft.
we're beginning some of these conversations and, moving it forward, so,
Right.
yeah.
right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Just help me understand from the assessment evaluation. So obviously, there's gonna be some rate users that are gonna pay both. What's the percentage of the
exemption?
town of Plattsburgh? Is it like 30% will do both the rate?
it's like
and-
40%, I think it was, something like 40% will pay both,
Will pay both, and then the
Yeah.
other 60 is gonna be just
one
one?
or the
They're
other.
just
One or the
water.
other?
I mean, most
All
people
the
have
sewer.
water,
Right.
and then it's 40% of those people that have water also have sewer.
Okay.
And part of what we were just talking about, I mean, there's times when you use bond anticipation notes, and then there's times when you go for the bond because the rate for the bond is that attractive.
Right.
That you say, let's go for the bond.
I mean,
You've got in there, I noticed, 4% assumed rate of interest on a bond.
right.
And right now, I think, I may be wrong, but I think you can get better than 4%.
Well, yeah, I did one thing I didn't wanna do in here is underestimate
Right.
anything like that. That's why the assumptions on you're not gonna get any assistance and
When
everything
we're
else.
dealing with our, you know, our bonding
Right,
people, they're gonna come back to us with a game plan. as to
yeah,
what's
I mean,
the
I
best
think
way to
that,
go.
if the town
Best
decides to
way to
move
go
ahead, you would need to
forward.
sit down with them and go through this plan and say, what's our best deal on money,
Yeah,
you know? Exactly, and the town's been successful using bands, I mean, you know, Pat's been juggling those from every year now, right? So, in terms of depending on interest rates,
mhm.
you know, pay some of this down sooner, actually, a lot of those went sooner. So those are all things that need to be looked at with your financial folks. Again, though, I think that the takeaway from this is you can do a significant amount of improvements for a little impact to your average homeowner. And I do wanna say too, that it's not presented in here, but the median property assessment is actually lower than the average, so most people, maybe more people are gonna pay less than this average. Am I getting that right? Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other-
Okay, could you go back to the slide where there's an error in the common head pump station? What's the proper nut figure there?
I think it's, I have to go back and look at that, I think I have it right here though. Yeah,
I mean, you're
right.
short about a mill or something.
No, it was two, it was, I dropped a number out of the slide for some reason. Champlain Park sewer closure is 2.2 million.
2.2.
I don't know, that was the original note, right, that's the original note, so I'd have to look it
Okay.
up for you, not in this slide.
Yeah, you were at 14,000, I thought that was.
No, it's a lot, there's a number
A
missing
little
there.
short there.
It's hard to get to two that way.
I think you change that when you put the draft on it.
Any other questions this evening? I know RJ is not staying in town this evening, and I want to be respectful of his time. This
There you
is,
Thank
we're
you.
gonna have more conversations about this in the future.
Thank you
And you
both.
have my phone number,
All right.
Thank you.
but I only charge
Thank you.
so much for the first minute.
We have no additional business before us, so I will call this meeting at 8:23. Thank you
Thank you.
So Michael, what did you find out?
for, I'll have that by next meeting or so.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
But you're working.
working on it.
No, that was passed. It was passed unanimously.
That was good, RJ, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, a lot of work goes into it.
Oh, I don't do that.
What?
Thanks, Ricky, for setting that up.